Thanks, Rena. It's gonna hit the button here. There we go. How are you guys doing? Happy Friday. We are surviving December. I don't know about you guys, but I need a fast project, something easy to create that I don't really have to think about. It's a little bit meditative because this time of year, I think it's just what we all need. And so this project will absolutely do that for us. And it's a really cool way to make a fast gift. If you're in a bind and you need another gift really quick, these are a really fast, easy to create design that they look really cool. They're just very stylish and you can customize them. You can make them in different lengths. And I'm going to show you guys, what's in the handout and how you can modify it, of course. But you can do really long or really short, kind of statement-y. And I'll tell you the counts for all this stuff. And then you can play and see what you like. All right. And so here on my mat, I've got all the beads out so far that I used. So I used 3 colors Delicas. And you can use any colors and any combination you like. You don't have to make them 3 colors, of course, all 1 color, 2 colors, whatever you'd like. I was going for, in a lot of the earlier designs, some kind of an ombre. Like in the handout, there's some icicle ones that go from like a white pearl to silver that I thought just looked amazing as like an ombre effect. But for today, for class, I'm going to work with very, very different stand apart colors so you can see the changes there. And then you'll need some size 6 seed beads, and you only need 2. They are used just here at the top as just a little way to have a transition point for your wire. And so those are the beads, Delicas, a couple size 6 beads. And then you'll need some artistic wire. So 24 or 26 gauge. In the handout, it calls out the 26. That's like guaranteed to get through a Delica, no problem. But 24 gets through as well. So if you have 24 handy, and use that, and if you have 26 handy, use that. For the thread I'm using size D Nymo. And again, you can use other kinds of threads. It should work pretty well. The only thing I would say, if you're using wildfire, multiple passes of wildfire, like when you weave in, it might start to get a little bit tight. So if you are using wildfire, maybe go for the 26 gauge wire, but it'll work. And I'm going to use some size 12 beading needles. You could use 10s too, those will be okay. And then right at the end, we're going to pull out some ear wires. For tools, we're going to use a lot of tools today because there's some wire work involved, but the usual scissors. And then I have like just a set of sparkle chain nose. I've got my bent nose for, we're probably going to use flush cutters today, round nose, and some chain nose. Those are going to be the main ones that I'm going to pull out. And again, that's just for making our little connector here at the top. Just bringing that, bringing the wire through and making that little loop. So a really quick, easy thing there. Let's see. And then one other incidental item that is not a must-have, but if you have it handy, can be, so Nymo can be kind of, when you first pull it off the spool, it's going to have some curvy memory to it. So it's going to spool into these little spin, which can promote knotting. And so we're going to be working with 60 inches of thread. So if you have like a candle, and it can literally be anything, a candle. And I also think, I think at Michael's now they have a thread conditioner, so you can check for that too. But anything like that can really help when working with this kind of thread. But that said, you can always work with a different thread if you have a preferred one. So just whatever you usually use when you're doing your Delica work, that's gonna work fine. Okay, and so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut 60 inches of my thread. And I actually pre-waxed a set of thread over here. So I didn't want you guys to have to watch me sit and wax it, but all I did was I pulled it over my wax. If at the end there's extra time and you want to see how that's done, but you just take the thread, you just kind of pull it. And it's a, what's it called, an arm span intensive thing that would be hard to do on the camera anyway, but we can try if anyone needs to see that technique in action. And so 60 inches, and you want to thread your beading needle. Again, the wax can help with that because the the usual trick we use to get our needles threaded where we flatten it with the pliers doesn't work as well with Nymo, but you can use the wax to get it to thread better. So that's what I did there. A little more challenging, but it works, you get there. And I'm going to start with my color 1. And the technique we're going to be using today is, it's peyote stitch, but it's a single column. And it's really, really easy to do stitch with, you know, it takes minimal effort to get started. You don't need any kind of, you know, tools to start it. But I'm going to go ahead and I'll bring this up to the camera closer.
Danielle,
so you guys can see.
Danielle, sorry, before you get going, will you just demonstrate how you use the wax on the thread?
Yeah, I want to go ahead and do that. I wasn't sure if it was something everyone wanted to see or not, but I can easily do that. So this is just a little bar of beeswax. Sorry, was I muted there? What part did you guys last hear?
Sorry, Danielle, I think that was me. So just go
No
right back
worries.
to the beeswax.
Okay, yeah, so again, this is just a regular old beeswax bar, and you can find these pretty much everywhere. A candle, like even like a tea light candle, totally fine. But all you'd have to do is, when you get the thread off the spool, it's like this, right? And that's going to knot up really quick while you're working. It's just going to start, you know, getting a little bit temperamental to work with. So I'll start with like a short side, and I push it down, and I'm pulling it through. See, kind of pulling it through the wax. I'll try not to hit it, camera. And it goes already, look at that, just tamed it so nicely. I usually do it a couple times. So there's one side done. And then you want to come along over here. Do the same thing on this side. I'm going to pull it down into there. I'm pulling really hard. I'm also, once it gets into the wax like that, you know, there's a lot of tension going on there, but it just makes it so much nicer. And this trick, I can't take credit for inventing this. This one was shared with me by several really, you know, professional designers taught me this. And the idea to use the wax came from Kate Rishberg, actually. So that's, I need to credit her for that, because this idea is her idea. Or at least that's where I learned it, was from her. And let's see, so your needles, and I do want to show that, since in case anyone struggles with that. The reason I did it off camera is I actually find it really difficult to thread Nymo, so I'll show you guys how I do it. And again, I need to credit Kate and Emily, because they taught me the trick needling the thread. And so I've got like a very small little point there. See how tiny that is? It's really small. It's waxed. It's been really waxed. It's the end that I ran through twice. And I'm going to bring my needle to it. And instead of trying to poke my thread through the needle, I'm going to bring the needle onto the thread. And it's still hard, even with all that effort, but eventually it works. And I got lucky there, no joke. So, but it's hard. So if you're struggling with it, you're not alone. It's really, we all, you know, we all have our little like things that are hard for us. And that's one that's hard for me. But once you got it threaded, then you're smooth sailing, right? And so what I'm going to do with the Delicas, I'm going to bring it really close to the camera, because it's really small to see. So I'll do this a couple times, so don't worry. We're going to do this multiple times until everybody has a chance to see it and pick it up. Okay, and so I've got 3 of these size 11 Delicas. So I'm bringing those down. And just leave a tail that's about 7 inches, something that is easy for you to thread later and weave in. So like about maybe 7 inches or so. And so this is my working side, and that's my tail side. I'm just going to turn and go through 1 bead in the direction, so I'm heading toward my tail there. And don't worry, we'll do this a couple times. When you tighten it, you'll get that familiar looking peyote stitch start. I often have to help it. So if everyone can see that, it's just that little start. And so often with a peyote stitch design like this, you'd have more and you'd pick up a bead, skip a bead, go through the next one, and you'd keep building in that direction. But what we're going to do is we're just going to turn and go through this bead. And so I'm going to pick up a bead and I'm going to go through this one right here. Let's see if I can do it while holding it. So just like that. And you might have to help it because this is that first stitch where it's going to get a little loose on you, but not too much. And you get a little kind of offset square. And keep it tight. Pick up another bead. And then you want to turn and go through the next bead. So it's just the next bead down, right? And pick that up. And you just get this little, what starts to look like a line. If we keep going, so just like that. I'll go a few more, we'll add a few more beads so you can see how it starts to form and take shape. And then I was thinking I'd start again. Does that sound good, Carmi?
I agree, Danielle.
Okay, that sounds good.
I'm so surprised because I guess in my mind, I thought you would be stacking them on top of each other. I didn't realize it would be a side to side.
Yeah, no, so this technique, to the best of my knowledge, the first time I ever saw it came from Carol Cyber Huber, I believe is that she published a book that had, you know, just basics of bead weaving. And that was my first encounter with this stitch. But what's cool about it is you can use this as a base instead of ladder stitching. So if you're not somebody who loves to ladder stitch or your ladder stitching is loose or you don't like laddering, you could do this instead. And then build your like brick stitch off it, for example, because doesn't it look like brick? It looks like your first 2 rows of brick stitch.
It really
That's
does.
just something to, yeah, it's like the next level up way to.
And Danielle, while you're doing that, I just wanted to confirm, why did you choose Nymo for the thread?
I did that because I wanted it to be flowy. And if you were to make this with wildfire, it wouldn't like, you know, swing. And I wanted it to swing while I was wearing it because I thought that looked really cool.
It's very subtle.
Yeah, I see it's got so much silky movement to it. Like it just kind of, it's so cool. But if you did it with wildfire, totally fine. It would be great, but it's just gonna move less. Like it's gonna do less snaking. Oh, it would work. So if that's what you've got, by all means, just yeah, use that because it. And as I was saying, I think in one of our previous classes, Meredith uses wildfire with Delicas, size 11 Delicas all the time, and her designs are beautiful. All right, and so that's all you do. You just keep going. So let's talk about counts for a second, and then I'll start over. So if you were building the design that's on the cover of our handout, you get one that's this long, and it indicates repeating. Basically, what you're doing is you're making a total of 40 size Delicas for each section. So each section is 40, and this makes a really long, super modern, really cool look, and I love it. If you want something a little less long, here's one made with 28s. So 28, 28, and 28. And that's also really great too. A little shorter. But so you can just experiment, like just start building one and see which one you like. And change it up. And you can make, another thought that I'd had is you can make more than one of these little dangles. Like you could, because we're working with wire, you could just bend this around a mandrel and put more than one of these on to your ring. And you'd get a little cascade of just flowy colors. So you can make them all one color. They could be different lengths hanging from that. So yeah, so much you could do. Let's start again. I'm going to set this one aside. Grab my other one that I had pre-threaded here. And again, this starts with, there's 3 beads there. And bring that down till you've got about 7 inches, whatever you're comfortable of weaving in length is. So 7 to 10 inches or so. And you're gonna skip those first 2 beads. Go back through the first one, heading in the direction of our tail. You can hear that wax makes it really kind of, because I really waxed this one. I wanted it to stick. There you go. And so just take note of what side your tail is. So this is my tail side. And this is my working side. And I'm going to pick up a bead and go through the next one that's on the working side. And so you're changing direction every time you add a new bead. And so you just keep going. And I thought it would be cool to make one that's just like a chakra rainbow, you know, that starts with the root and goes to crown. All 7 colors, just built with maybe a block of 10 colors each. That would be cool. And I think that would be a really popular summer earring if you're someone who sells your work and you've got a booth. Can you imagine all those rainbow just lined up on your table? So eye-catching and glittery, because all these are glittery beads. Delicas, even the opaques, they have such a shine to them, like a luster, that they catch my eye. And then if you pull in silver lined ones, and it's like, wow. And so, yeah, it just starts building and building. We're doing so great on time. So if there's questions, by all means, you guys can jump in with those and I'll answer them. Keep going.
Danielle, I'm going to take a minute and just ask, is there anybody here that would need to see a third demonstration?
Perfect. Yeah, thank you.
Because if you get it, great. If not, third time might be the charm. So, and I'm just going to answer Lynn. The Delica beads are from Japan. They're a Miyuki bead. They're very famous. If you're new to beading, Miyuki Delicas are what some beaders only use. So they're collectible, they're loved, and you can definitely get them now at Michael's, which is why we have that class today. Danielle, if you don't have Delicas, is this a technique you could try with other seed beads?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you can do this with size 11 rounds. This pop that you get, you know how it's just everything just snaps right into place like that, happens less easily with a round bead, but it's totally doable.
Okay.
And you can use size 8 too. That would be fine.
Danielle, we are great for time, and Beth would love one more. So
sure.
I know it will only take you a minute, and for everybody else, hopefully now they've memorized it and they can do it without even watching the recording later. Well, Sharon's got a first color finished already, so that means she's done a row of 40. Oh, that looks great.
That's so pretty.
Oh, you're using like a silver or a white or something.
It looks like you pulled some gold in there.
Yeah, we've got a couple other people beading along. Oh, I see Pat. How are you?
Hey.
You guys know when I moderate the class, I try not to look at the top very much. So I only usually see the first 1 or 2 people. But Danielle and I want to make sure everyone leaves getting this stitch right. Janelda has saying she's got some curving to it.
Yeah. So if you're working with like a size 11 round bead, which I mean, there's time I could even maybe demo that. It can help if you do switch to 2 drop. Let me demo this one more time, just as it's written in the handout. And then I think we could probably swing that,
If
showing
we
the,
have time at the end, Danielle, but
Yeah.
let's make sure everyone knows how to do this icicle.
yes, exactly. So let's cruise through that and then we'll see, because that is a great question and it is solvable by adding, just making it a little wider with the rounds.
Danielle, I want you to know Raina's already saying that she would do shiny silver, 3 strands, all different lengths, all in one earring. So
That's
I can
beautiful.
see people are definitely getting their ideas.
Oh, I'm so glad. That's cool. All right, and so what I've got here is three of the beads, and it's my tail over here. Pick up one more, or sorry, the 3 beads, then you skip 2 and go back through your first one. So we strung 3, and now we're going back through the first one we strung, heading toward the tail. And then tighten that down. And sometimes my beads will do this. You see how they're kind of just, I'm going to just help them a little bit. And you have to do that on the first one usually. But after that, it does good. So there's that little pop. You're going to get 2 on the bottom and 1 kind of sitting in a brick position on top. And so here's my tail side and my working side. Pick up a bead and go through the next bead on your working side. So through that one. And don't worry if it loosens up on you in the first few stitches. When you get to this little square here and you have this little loose wonkiness going, go ahead and pull on both. That alone will tighten it up quite a bit. But then for some added bonus, use your thumbnail to kind of hold one side, give it a pull. Do the same thing on the other side with your tail. And that will straighten out your first 4, which are the most problematic of any design. And then you'll pick up 1 more. And again, you're going to go through the next one on your working side. And so you should get something that looks like that. And again, another bead. Working side. I'll keep going a few more. And then I was thinking, let's put the wire on it. I have one that's ready to go that I made really long. And oh, check out what I did. So it looks like I actually went through my tail side. Let me see. Oh no, I just tangled with my tail, that's all. So I'm going to pull that out. Yeah, if you do that, you'll notice right away. I actually took my new bead and went through the wrong side because I wasn't really paying attention to where I was going there. Oh, wow. Woohoo! I was not expecting that to go as well as it did. All right, so this is my working side. So just paying attention to which side is the one that you should work through. So not going through my tail one. There we go. And when I'm working on these without trying to show them, so I'm trying to be very careful to show everything that I'm doing. But when I'm actually doing it myself, just by myself, I'll go and hold my last stitch in place like that. So, I'm just pinching it like that. So everything's stabilized as I add my new beads. So, and then you can work fast, right? Just come in there, going through the next one. You can't really see what you're doing, especially when it first gets started, but it makes it precise, see? Gives you, I'm putting a lot of pressure on that. You can see it's like left a little indentation, but.
Thanks, Danielle. You just answered that just as Ruth was saying that her stitch seems loose.
Yeah, if you're working it like I was just demoing it, you're going to end up having to come along and do the tightening. The tightening should help though. Within the last 3 beads will tighten when you do this. So you can pull on that side and use your thumbnail to hold the bead. and it'll tighten up your last 3 bead additions. It won't help much further back than that. So if you have a loose spot further back, for that, just weave to it at the end and use your weaving in process to tighten up that spot if you've got something like that going on. So are we feeling good about this? Should we?
I think we are.
Are we good? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and move this aside really quick. Get these beads up. And then I was going to show the wire part. And it's not tricky at all. And it's super easy, but just in case anyone would like to see that part. So for how much wire to cut, there's really no rhyme or reason to it. I think I just did like 6 to 8 inches or so. And I usually eyeball it, but since we're live, I think I'll just go ahead and do a quick measure. So I'm going to bring out my tape measure here. There's my 6. And grab my flush cutters. Okay. And if you want to straighten it with like a nylon jaw plier, if you've got that handy, that's helpful. But I actually just work with it kind of rounded because what I'm going to do next, I'm going to be rounding it anyway. So I just have it kind of like in a little C shape like that. As long as there's no major kinks, it's not going to interfere with my design. And then there's the top of my earring. Go right to the Delica. At the moment in my hand is 24 gauge. 26 gauge is even smoother. So either of those is great. Bring the ends together. And I'm just going to form it with my hands. Just kind of bring it together like that. I'm not worrying too much about my loop, but I just kind of made it pretty. Set that down and get some size 6. So any 6O bead that you like the color of, just go for that. And bring the ends through. Bring it down to that spot where I made a notch kind of. There's no rule here. You can make this loop as big or as small as you'd like to. And if you have a mandrel, you can make a round loop and use Raina's idea to put the extra. Because that would be really stunning looking. So definitely keep that in mind. It's a great idea. And now I'm getting round nose pliers. So it's my round nose. And everybody does their loops different. Here's how I do mine. I get right above the bead. And when I first start my loop, when I do my first bend, I go for like the very front of the plier because I want to have, you know, not too many wraps. The bigger space you make here, the more wraps you're going to need to make to fill that space. So I always go as small as I can with the tool that I'm using. So I'm right up there at the front and just bend it forward. And then bring your tool up 90 degrees. So let's see if I can get that to focus. Sorry, guys. I'm either too low or too high, but I bent it 90 degrees relative to the position of my wire. And I'm just going to bring it around. And now I'm going to go ahead and just bring my pliers up a little bit, maybe like to there, right? And go around. So I've got a good loop there. Bring it down. And now take both of those ends and just wrap them around. You can use your fingers, or if you wanted to use a tool to pull it, you can use a tool. I think I'm going to get one more wrap on there. And straighten out my loop. And if you're happy with it, you can straighten it out a little bit if you need to. But if you're happy with your loop, then time to trim. Another thing I also do is I look to make sure that this is straight, because you see how there's kind of a bend here. I'm just going to move it up a little bit. So that's in a straight line. Flush cutters, where did you go? Okay. So again, I switch into flush cutters here, and I'm going to trim that a little closer. And now chinos. So these are the thin ones with a little pointy end. I'm just going to flatten that down so it doesn't catch on like a sweater or something, you know. And there. All we need is an ear wire. So let's grab ear wire. And I'm going to open the ear wire. You could put this on when you've got your loop made. I find that I do it the opposite way. I put the ear wire on after I've made my loops. But that's just preference. You could do either. And there you go. It looks like I've got a stray strand there. I should pull that, you know, try to trim it a little bit. If you're having any questions about weaving in, does anyone have questions about how to weave in their strands now that we're talking about that?
Not yet.
Not yet?
Not yet.
It's the usual way I always do it. With peyote stitch, knotting is not something that comes naturally because it's going to show. So you just change direction a bunch of times. You just start going up and down a few rows and then trim it. Another thing that I've seen people do when they get an end like that is burning it, because if you burn it, it's gonna kind of like solder it in place, or not solder it, but it's the word. Kind of melts it a little bit in place. This natural thread though doesn't do, it doesn't perform like wildfire does. When you use a burner, it's a little less, it still works, but it doesn't do the same job, if that makes any sense as far as adhesion. But it's still, it helps you with that precision of getting, you know, getting it right next to your bead.
Danielle,
yeah,
Kathy's mentioning it would be a very pretty bracelet also.
Oh yeah, yeah. In fact, one of the reasons I didn't do it as a bracelet is that that's all over social media and, you know, Instagram, and this is the thing people are doing right now. It's like the in thing. So I wanted to make it a little different. Plus, I needed an earring in my life at that moment. So, but you could actually use the same, you know, finishing method to make a bracelet. You just put a clasp there instead of an ear wire, and on the other side a jump ring, and you got it. It's really cute.
Cindy's mentioning she likes the contrasting thread up the sides.
That would be gorgeous. Yeah. And there's a lot of color choices. So there's this one, and there's another mix there, I think, that has some pink in it. So you can pull the pink out and use that. I always, when I'm demoing, I'm always tending to use the color that's the easiest to see against my beige mat. But yeah, so pretty. So many ideas. I think on the icicles, I may have used the white thread. I'm pretty sure that's the one I went with on that. Or I may have used the gray because of the silver. I'm not sure. But
yeah. Danielle, because we have time and loops might be new for a few people, will you demo that loop option maybe on the opposite side?
Yeah, sure thing. Let's get some more wire here. And I'm going to eyeball it this time, but typically, like, I would measure 6 inches or so. It's probably too much, but too much is better than too little. And this is already really smooth looking, so I'm not going to worry too much about flattening it. And so bring it through your Delica. Bring it to the midpoint and bring your ends together. And just use your hand to smooth it down. I'm going to try to match what I did on the other side. And if this, you know, you'd have another earring next to you that you could try to match it. But I think I want it to go like right there. So I'm going to go ahead and use my fingernails to kind of give it a spot where I know my seed bead will sit. And another one of those. And get those ends through. And bring it down to there. And once you've got that, the round nose pliers is what you need next. So those are those round shaped ones. And again, what I'm doing is I'm keeping it really close to the front of the tool for my first part. So that I don't have to make like a million wraps, unless you want to do a messy wrap, which that would look amazing. So definitely try that if you like that look. But so for me, I just bent it forward, a little 90-degree angle there. And then I'm bringing the tool up to 90 degrees. So now it's running in the same plane as my earring. And as I start to form my loop, so there's the beginning of my loop, I move up on the tool just a little bit, so like to there, maybe even a little less. Go around, And so you get a loop there. I'll take the tool apart there. But so there's our loop. You could put the ear wire on now if you wanted to. And put the tool back in. And then just wrap. And I went around 3 times on my last one, so I'm going to do the same thing on this one. And I try to place my tails kind of toward the back. Oh, that's a little fuzzy. Sorry, guys. To show the top, easier to show that way, I think. So I just wrapped around 3 times, and I'm going to trim this tail as close as I can without cutting my other wire. I don't want to cut what's there right now. So I'm just going to get as close as I can. And now these are the pointy chain nose pliers. We'll bring those out and just kind of force those to not be sticking up as much. And there it is. And that's how you do bracelet. You could just imagine that was a little longer. And you could put chain on one side, and your clasp on the other, and there's a really cool idea. You could even put Morse beads too. And another thought I had was you could just do a regular wrap loop that doesn't have to have both strands coming together, both wires. Like you could just do one circle loop here, put a bead, and then do your regular wrap loop on that side. And you wouldn't have all this bulk here. You'd have uniform wraps on either side of your bead or beads or anything like that.
Danielle, would you happen to have another one that's partially worked?
Nope, but I can just cut it. And we can just use it again.
No, because we actually have a great question on the sidebar is how would someone do a checker? Because it's one color, then another color, then it's the same thing. You'd just be picking up different colors, right?
Yeah. Yeah, all you'd have to do is, you mean you just want the colors to kind of alternate from each other?
If you did a 2-color checker effect.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just every other bead, pick up a different bead is what I think would work. Let's test it.
So in this scenario, it's obviously the starting it is going to be the hardest.
Yeah, let's see. Let me think about that. So starting it, you'd want to. I actually enjoy challenges like this. Let's see what happens. I can't promise I'll land it, but we will try.
So Ruth is asking, when you're using the wire, you're definitely running it only through one bead. So that is correct. And I wanted to let you know that Sharon doesn't have any wire, so she's going to use a jump ring or...
A jump ring should fit. If you have a
Jump ring will
26
fit?
gauge jump ring or a 24 gauge jump ring, that should be fine. A 22 gauge jump ring, maybe. It depends on how many passes you put through your...
Yep. Yeah, Sharon's got split rings.
Yeah, you know what? I had a thought about that. Would it be possible to put it on your bead before you stitch it and add it as a last bead? So you get to the very end and then as your last bead, just stitch it on there with already the jump ring in it. Because I know how split rings can be. They're challenging to put through things. Like, honestly, I don't know if I could do it. I would try, but
Yeah, Sharon's laughing. But you know what? I know she's going to try it.
hey, if it works, then oh my goodness, that's cool. So yeah, definitely try that. I'm gonna try seeing, this is me guessing, but I think if I pick up 3, my center color is different. So I went with a different color there.
Okay, so this is for the checkered question.
Yeah, that's what I'm just making a guess here. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm gonna try it. And what I'm thinking is actually I picked them up in the wrong order because now it's gonna put them on the same side as each other. We want them to be on opposite sides, right? So what I should have done is one color and then 2 different for the first one. I don't know why spatially, like I just can't represent that in my own head for some reason. I have to try it. Okay.
No, but now that they bring it up, I think a lot of us will try the checker.
Well, it still put them on one side, didn't it? Boy. Is that what? Oh, I see. So we want. I think that the second color needs to be the. One more time. Okay, I have an idea. Okay.
Cindy's giving you an easy out. Maybe if you start with 3 of the same color, and then you can add a bead and start working the colors out.
Oh, so like a larger block of checker? That's totally right. Yeah, I agree, Cindy. That would have been the way to go there. I think I misinterpreted. I thought you guys meant a single block of checker.
Nope, that's the checker. So can you imagine that in black and white?
Oh. And so what color would I do next? Purple? I'm doing more like diagonal stripes. See what I would do if I would actually put this into my little graph program and then just sketch it from there. And then it would tell me what bead to pick up in what order. Or just, basically sketch it out on some graph paper. I made stripes. I really like stripes, so I think I just consciously made stripes.
But no, we thank you for trying, because I think a couple people are definitely going to experiment with their color blocks.
Oh yeah, and so like 4 and then 4. Yeah, Cindy's way. Do it the way Cindy said, because that will work. 4 and 4. I see it now. I see it. No, that's really cool. Okay.
Well, Danielle, you did great for time. So I think everyone understood how to put the findings on at the end and the earrings. So that's all good.
Okay, cool. There was, well, I had something I was holding to the end. Was it doing with round beads?
Yes.
Okay. I'm gonna grab, I did grab some size 10s because they're gonna be a little easier to see because they're big. A little bigger than 11s, but is that color okay? Can we tell those apart?
Try it, Danielle, because okay. if they don't have a Delica, I don't want them to not try.
And this process will be the same for an 11-0 or for 8s. I think it would work with all of those. An 8 would make an especially beautiful bracelet. And it would work up really fast too. Let's see where I am on thread. Might need to cut a new one here. And I'm just going to really quickly run that through my wax. It'll only take a second. Okay. Fingers crossed. So often I get like 1 or 2 through, and then I get this little fray. I brave the fray and I just pull and see what happens. And sometimes it goes through, and then, it's just the end, so we don't worry about it. It worked. Okay, I'm gonna do that same thing again, and I pick up. Okay, so it would be the same process with rounds that it would be with your Delicas. You would notice the popping wouldn't happen as easily. You'll have to kind of help it every time, but someone had asked about curving. And so it's less likely to curve on you if you do 2-drop. And so a 2-drop is, you would just basically treat 2 beads as 1 bead. So instead of 3, I'm going to pick up 6 beads, right? So here's, and I'll switch back to that color. So there's 6 beads instead of 3. And I'm treating each of those blocks of 2 as 1 bead. And that's why I did them in a different color, so you can see. So now we're going to skip our first 2 beads, right? Our first 4 beads that are acting as 1, and go through those. And just pull that tight. And we should get the same thing that happened before. And that actually happened a lot easier, because when you're working with 2-drop, the shapes form a little more readily on their own without you having to help them too much. And another trick, if you're not worried about weaving in later, you can weave in down lower, but just to get a little more security, gasp, you could do a little knot right here. And that's just to help you make it stay put for a minute while we work the next few stitches. So I did that little knot there. I wouldn't have done it with a Delica, because on a Delica, it's going to show. But on a size 10 bead, size 11 bead, and especially on an 8, You're not going to see the knot. It's just going to go in back in the bead and it'll be fine. And if you try it on a Delica, you can try to help the knot hide later when you do your weaving in. But that's something that would work in that case. And then there you go. There's the checker that I couldn't do on the last one, sort of, or I guess it's still a stripe. I don't know. It's cute anyway. And so every time I do my little turn, I'm just doing it with 2 beads instead of 1. And especially for a bracelet design, this is really cute. We've done this before, this exact step. Let's see, February of 2021, I think it was, we did a class that was sliders. We were putting the slider beads from the charm wall. We were putting those on a band of Delicas that we stitched in 2-drop single column peyote, just like this. So you can go back and check out that class too if that's of interest, because that was something we covered there. I actually really like this. This is pretty.
Danielle, I think a few people will try this over the Delicas even.
Yeah, it's definitely got its potential. Like it's got a different look, right? But so much you can do there. I like it. And there's our checker. I didn't do that intentionally. I cannot take credit for having planned that. It was accident I saw as we were going.
Danielle, could you put it next to the Delicas so they can see the size differential between using the 10-0s?
And of course, this is a single column design, but
thank you.
And you can do this 2-drop with the Delicas too. And it's even more stabilizing, like just amazingly fast that way. The bring those back here. And see, watch how this pops. See, you've got these 6 on there. Bring it down. Skip those first 4. Back through those 2. And so it'd just be like that. Super easy. And so with this one, I wouldn't knot. What I would do here is I'd pinch it really tightly and then come through and get through my next bead there without, without taking it out of my hand. So you can't see what I'm doing, but it makes it much tighter. And 2-drop is so much easier than single because they help stabilize each other like that. And so here's 10-0, Delica, and there's the single column.
That's perfect, Danielle. Thank you. I just want to tell you, Karen just left a message saying that she's learned so much in the classes. She used to not like seed beads and that you've converted her.
Oh, I'm so glad. Thank you. That's the goal. Get you guys to love the seed beads as much as I do.
Well, Danielle, let's put the camera on you.
Okay.
So you can have a chance to say hello and see a few people.
Hey. It's been a great year. I can't believe this is our last class of the year. Can you?
I cannot.
How did that happen? And we're starting next January is like, we're getting into the 70 classes that we've done, 70 some odd classes. I think it's 71.
Yes, we've for everyone who's wondering, we've already submitted our 76th class,
yep.
which you guys will get at some point in the upcoming months.
Mm-hmm. I didn't check to see if they're already up there, but the January classes might be there already.
January classes are up.
They are up. Oh, awesome. Yeah, I hadn't checked yet. That's cool. Yeah, we're starting off the year with a Q&A. That's packaging, like designer beaded packaging. We're going to stitch beads onto cards. So something totally departure from what I'm used to. And it's an idea that actually I got from Carmi for putting beads on the cards because I had never thought of that. And now I'm hooked because it's really fun. So all of our favorite stitches, but like around to make a really this wow factor presentation for your jewelry. So if you have some gifting to do, or if you're selling your work and you do gift wrapping, this is like how to make the presentation of your jewelry just top notch. And so that's what we're doing in the first class there. And then just got a bunch of more jewelry projects after that. And yeah, lots of fun stuff coming up. I'm looking forward to 2022.
Well, Danielle, on behalf of John Bead, I just wanted to wish everyone a happy holidays. Whatever holidays you're celebrating, we hope that they're good. And we are truly looking forward to seeing everyone in January.
I'm looking forward to it too. Thanks, guys. And please have a great break. And we'll see you back here just after the new year. Thank you to everyone. Bye.